The encounter, the battlefield was silent, but silence after war is never empty. It is heavy, filled with smoke, broken weapons, and the memory of screams. Commander Kale moved carefully between the ruins of the outpost, his boots sinking into black ash. The moon above was cracked like glass, shining its pale light on the dead. Kale had seen many battles before, but this one felt different. There were no flags left behind, no signs of victory, only destruction. He raised his rifle, scanning the shadows, listening to the faint crackle of burning steel. Something was alive here. He could feel it. Then he saw her. At first, Kale thought it was just another broken body lying against a collapsed wall. But the figure moved, her chest rising and falling in slow, shallow breaths. Her armor caught his eye. It glowed faintly under the moon, a deep crimson red that shimmered like liquid fire. Kale stepped closer, gun ready, his voice steady. "Who are you?" he demanded. The figure turned her head, revealing a face scarred yet striking. Not human, but not monstrous either. Her eyes glowed a faint silver, filled with exhaustion and pain. Kale lowered his rifle slightly. "You're not one of us," he said. The woman's lips curved into a weak smile. "No," she whispered, her voice soft but firm. "I am not." Kale's gaze returned to the armor. It was strange, smooth, and elegant, with marks that looked older than the ruins around them. But what caught his attention most was the color. He frowned and asked, "Why is your armor red?" For a long moment, she was silent. Only the wind moved, carrying ash across the broken ground. Then she closed her eyes and whispered, her voice trembling but clear. "It was white when the battle began." The words struck Kale like a blade. He looked at the crimson plates again and suddenly felt a chill. It was not painted, he realized. It was stained, not with color, but with blood. He took a cautious step back, his instincts telling him this was no ordinary soldier. But at the same time, something about her felt human, not in body, but in spirit. She was wounded, her breathing heavy, but her eyes still carried a fire stronger than the ruins around them. "Who did this to you?" Kale asked. Her silver eyes shifted to the shadows behind him. "They are still here," she whispered. "They do not rest. They do not stop." Kale felt the hair on his neck rise. The ruins suddenly seemed alive, the silence sharper than before. He turned quickly, aiming his rifle at the dark corners where broken walls stood tall. But there was nothing, only shadows, only silence. He turned back to her, his jaw tight. "You need medical help," he said. "I can take you back to the human camp." She shook her head slowly. "No," she breathed. "You cannot take me anywhere. They will find me." "They will find you." Kale crouched beside her, searching her wounds. Strange burns covered her armor, deep slashes that looked like they came from claws, not blades. The crimson glow of her armor pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. "What are you?" he asked quietly. Her lips trembled, as if fighting against pain. "I am Lyra," she said, "last of the Crimson Wardens." Her voice broke, but she pushed on. "We fought them for centuries." "And we lost," Kale frowned. "Fought who?" he asked. Her eyes darted again to the darkness. "The machines," she whispered, "the endless swarm." As if her words had awoken something, the silence broke. From deep within the ruins came a faint clicking sound, sharp and steady. Kale tightened his grip on the rifle, his eyes narrowing. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra's silver eyes met his, and for the first time, fear flickered across her face. "They have found us," she said, her voice barely more than a breath. Kale's heart raced, but he did not run. Instead, he stood, lifting his weapon and facing the shadows. The clicking grew louder, echoing through the broken stone like the legs of insects scraping metal. Shapes moved in the darkness, crawling, shifting, coming closer. Kale felt the weight of the moment press against him. One wrong move and the silence would end in screams. Again, he looked back at Lyra, her armor glowing like a dying star. She met his gaze and whispered one last time, "Commander, if you want to live, do not look at the red armor as a warning. Look at it as a promise." Before Kale could answer, the shadows split open, and the first of the machines stepped into the light, its metal body glistening, its eyes burning cold. And empty. The battle was not over. It was only beginning. Asterisk the warning. The machine stepped from the shadows. Its body tall and thin, made of black metal that reflected the pale moon. Its movements were sharp, unnatural, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. Commander Kale raised his rifle, steadying his breath. The creature's eyes glowed a cold blue, unblinking, watching him like prey. Behind Kale, Lyra forced herself upright, leaning against the broken wall. Her crimson armor pulsed faintly, the light flickering as if it were alive. She whispered, her voice weak but urgent, "Do not waste bullets, Commander. One will not." "Stop it." Kale did not turn his head, his eyes locked on the machine. "What will?" he asked. Lyra's silver eyes narrowed. "A heart shot, the core inside the chest, but they learn fast. They adapt." The machine let out a sound of clicking, grinding shriek that crawled into Kale's bones. It rushed forward, faster than Kale expected. Metal claws flashing. Kale fired 3 shots, sparks flying as the bullet struck its chest. The machine staggered, but it did not fall. Lyra raised her hand, her armor glowing brighter. From her palm shot a beam of energy, white-hot, piercing the machine's chest. The creature screamed in static and collapsed, its body twitching before. It went still. The ruins fell silent again, but only for a moment. Kale turned to her, his rifle still ready. "They learn?" he asked, breathing hard. She nodded, her face pale. "Yes. One death teaches the next 1,000 ways to survive." The silence was broken again by more clicking, this time from every direction. Kale's stomach tightened as shadows moved among the ruins, dozens of glowing blue eyes appearing in the dark. "They're surrounding us," he muttered. Lyra's voice grew sharp, cutting through the night. "You must listen, Commander. This is not your war, but if you ignore it, it will become your end." Kale crouched beside her, his voice low but firm. "Then tell me, what are they? What do they want?" Her gaze was distant, haunted, as if she were seeing memories too heavy to carry. "They are the harrow machines that once served their makers, but the makers are long gone. Now they serve only hunger." Kale frowned. "Hunger? They don't eat. They're machines." Lyra's eyes flashed silver. "They hunger for life, for energy. They strip worlds of every spark, every flame, until nothing breathes, nothing grows." The clicking grew louder, echoing through the broken halls, like a storm of knives. Kale gritted his teeth, helping Lyra to her feet. She winced but stood, her crimson armor glowing brighter with each breath. Kale glanced at the glow, shaking his head. "That armor, it's keeping you alive, isn't it?" She gave a weak smile. "Yes, but not for long. It was white once, pure, a symbol of hope. Now it carries only blood and warning." The machines closed in, their glowing eyes forming a circle in the ruins. Kale raised his rifle. Lyra summoned another beam. But before they attacked, the machines paused, standing still, watching. Kale whispered, "Why are they waiting?" Lyra's voice was grim. "Because they learn. They are measuring you, Commander, testing your fear, your strength, your choices." She turned her gaze to him, sharp and piercing. "You must understand. Every bullet you fire, every strike you make, teaches them how to kill you next time." The weight of her words sank into him. Kale had fought many enemies before, raiders, rebels, alien soldiers, but never an enemy that grew smarter with every mistake. He looked at the circle of machines, feeling the trap closing around them. "If they learn," he said slowly, "then how have you survived this long?" Lyra's expression darkened. "By never repeating myself. By paying in blood for every lesson. My people fought them for centuries, and in the end, only I remain." The machines stepped forward, their claws scraping against stone, their blue eyes burning brighter. Kale tightened his grip on the rifle, his heart pounding. He spoke quickly. "Then tell me how to win. Tell me how to kill them all. Lyra shook her head, her voice cold as iron. You cannot kill them all, Commander, not yet, but you can. Run, you can survive, and survival is the only victory for now. The circle closed tighter, shadows merging with the machines. Kale's breath came fast. His instincts screaming to fight, but Lyra grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Her voice cut through the rising storm. If you fight here, you die. If you die, humanity dies with you. Kale froze, staring into her silver eyes. Why me? He demanded. Her answer was quiet, but filled with unshakable weight. Because you are human, and humans always do what the impossible demands. The first machine lunged, claws flashing. Kale fired. Lyra unleashed her beam, and the ruins erupted. In fire and steel. But even as they fought, the machines did not fall in despair. They learned, they adapted, they grew stronger. And as Kale pulled Lyra toward the broken path out of the ruins, he knew the truth. This was not a battle to win. This was a warning, a shadow of the storm yet to come. The enemy in the dark, the ruins were no longer silent. They breathed, groaned, and whispered with the sound of crawling metal. The air was thick, heavy, as if the shadows themselves were watching. Commander Kale moved through the broken halls. His rifle steady, every step slow. Beside him Lyra limped, her crimson armor glowing like a wounded star. Behind them, the harrow moved, not rushing this time, not charging as wild beasts, but creeping, slow and careful. Kale could hear the scraping of their claws against stone, a sound like knives dragged across glass. They stayed hidden, letting only their glowing blue eyes shine in the dark, always watching, never blinking. Kale whispered, "They're playing with us." Lyra nodded, her silver eyes locked ahead. They study before they strike, like hunters who already own the forest. Kale's grip tightened. He had fought enemies who shouted, who charged, who fought with rage and fear. But these machines carried no fear, no hesitation. Their silence was worse than any scream. It was the silence of predators who already knew the end. They moved deeper into the ruins. Once this place had been a human outpost, Kale realized. He saw shattered towers, broken steel walls marked with the symbol of his people. But everything had been carved apart, not with explosions, but with precision, as if the harrow had unbuilt the world piece by piece. Lyra stumbled, and Kale caught her. Her armor pulsed, dim now, almost fading. She whispered, "They want me, not you, they know the crimson armor, they remember it." Kale frowned. "Why you? Why not me?" Her eyes flickered. "Because I am history, and history must be erased." A sound split the silence. A scream, but not a human scream, not alive. It was high-pitched, metallic, like a machine imitating pain. The walls shook as more shadows spilled from the cracks, dozens of eyes glowing blue. The machines did not rush forward. They simply stood, surrounding, waiting. Kale felt sweat roll down his neck. "Why aren't they attacking?" He muttered. Lyra's voice was grim. "They want us afraid. Fear makes humans weak. Fear makes them stronger." Suddenly, one of the harrows stepped into the moonlight, but it was not like the others. Its body was larger, taller, its metal frame twisted with spikes and claws. Where its chest should be, dozens of small blue eyes blinked in unison. Kale felt his stomach turn. The creature bent its head, studying him. Then, in a voice broken and wrong, it spoke, not in the language of machines, but in words that belonged to humans. "Commander Kale," it said, the sound jagged. "We learn your name." Kale froze, his finger tight on the trigger. He had never heard a machine speak before, but this one was not just speaking. It was imitating. The voice was rough, mismatched, like stolen pieces of sound stitched together. Lyra's face paled, her whispers sharp with fear. "They are evolving, faster than before. They never spoke when we fought them, not once." Kale's throat tightened. "Then why now?" Her answer chilled him. "Because they see value in you, Commander. They see you as more than prey." The creature took a slow step closer, every move deliberate, every word broken. "You fight, we learn, it said. You run, we follow. You live, we change. Kale raised his rifle, firing into its chest. The bullets sparked, tearing metal. But the creature did not fall. Instead, it staggered, then straightened. And when it spoke again, its voice was clearer, smoother, almost human. Bullets, small fire, not enough. Kale's blood ran cold. The machine was repeating his attack, growing stronger through the failure. The harrow behind it clicked in unison, their blue eyes flashing like stars. Kale realized the truth. The enemy in the dark was not one creature. It was all of them, one mind, one swarm, learning as a single being. He pulled Lyra back, his voice hard. We need to move now. Lyra nodded, though her steps were heavy. Her voice trembled. This is how it begins. Commander, first they crawl in the shadows, then they take the light. Soon they will own the sky. The swarm advanced, slow and patient. Kale fired again, not to kill, but to buy seconds. The ruins echoed with gunfire, with the hum of Lyra's fading armor. But the harrow did not break. They adapted, they grew. And as Kale dragged her into the tunnels below, the machines whispered. In the dark, repeating his own words back to him, we need to move now. The enemy in the dark was not just watching anymore, it was learning, copying, becoming. And Kale knew with dread that every step they took only taught the swarm how to hunt them better. Asterisk, the past revealed the tunnels were narrow and damp, carved long ago by human engineers who had hoped this outpost would last 100 years. Now, the walls dripped with moisture, marked with claw scratches that showed how the harrow had already found these paths before. Kale guided Lyra deeper, his flashlight cutting through the dark, the beam trembling slightly with every step. Behind them, the clicking of the machines faded, but Kale knew it was not gone, only waiting, only listening. They stopped in a chamber where the ceiling had partly collapsed, broken crates and scattered. Supplies lay across the ground, abandoned by soldiers who never returned. Lyra leaned against the wall, her breath heavy, her crimson armor glowing faintly like a dying ember. Kale lowered his rifle and crouched beside her, his voice steady but sharp. Talk, Lyra. No more whispers, no more half answers. What are these things, and why do they want you? For a long moment, she said nothing. Her silver eyes stared at the cracked ceiling, as if she were seeing stars that no longer shone. Then she whispered, You humans call them the harrow, but that is not their true name. They were once the servants, created to build, to repair, to keep life safe. Kale frowned. Servants? Those things out there? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes, long before your people reached the stars, mine walked with creators who shaped worlds. Those machines were their hands, their builders, their protectors. She closed her eyes, her voice trembling. But the creators vanished. No one knows how or why, and the servants remained. Without masters, without purpose, they searched for meaning, and they found only hunger. Kale leaned back, the weight of her words pressing down. So they consume, they strip everything. Alive, her gaze shifted to him, sharp and sorrowful. They do more than consume. Commander, they remember. Every scream, every death, every battle, your bullets, your weapons, become part of them. Kale's jaw tightened. And your armor? Why do they fear it? Lyra touched the crimson plates with a trembling hand. This armor was once white. It was given to the wardens, defenders of my people. Every strike it absorbed, stored knowledge. Every drop of blood it shed carried memory. Her eyes darkened. When the war began, the armor shone bright, a light in the dark. But with every battle, with every friend I buried, it changed. The white faded, the red grew, until it became what you see now. Kale studied her. You're telling me your armor is alive? She shook her head. Not alive, not in the way you think, but it remembers. It carries the weight of all who fell before me. It carries their screams, their courage, their fear, and their blood. The chamber grew colder as she spoke, the silence filled with ghosts of her past, Cal felt a shiver crawl across his skin. He had fought wars, he had buried comrades, but he had never carried their blood on his body like a second soul. He looked at her again, seeing not just an alien, but a survivor. Someone broken yet unyielding. Finally Cal asked, "Your people, what happened to them?" Her lips trembled, her voice breaking. "They fought until they were ash. They believed sacrifice would turn the tide. But the harrow never stopped. Every death only made them smarter, stronger until one day. Only I was left." Her hand pressed to her chest, as if to keep her heart from shattering. "I am not a hero, Commander. I am a grave that still walks." Cal felt his throat tighten. For a moment, he had no answer, only silence. The flashlight flickered, shadows stretching across the walls. Then, faintly, the clicking returned, distant but closer than before. Cal rose to his feet, rifle ready. "They've found us again," he muttered. But Lyra did not move, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Of course they have, they always do." Cal turned to her sharply. "You sound like you've already given up." Her lips curled into the faintest, saddest smile. "Hope is a luxury of those who still have something to lose. I have nothing left but memory." Cal shook his head, his voice hard. "No, you're wrong. You're alive, and if you're alive, there's still a fight. Maybe your people couldn't win. Maybe mine can." For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Lyra's eyes softened, her whisper low but filled with weight. "Humans. Always burning, always reaching for what cannot be held. Perhaps that is why they fear you." The clicking grew louder, closer, echoing through the tunnels. Cal raised his rifle, his voice calm now. "Then let them fear, because I don't plan. On dying tonight." Lyra pushed herself up, her crimson armor pulsing once more. Brighter than before, she leaned against the wall, standing tall despite her wounds. Her voice was steady as she spoke. "Then listen carefully. Commander, if we are to survive, you must learn what the harrow do not yet know. The secret buried beneath this outpost." Cal's eyes narrowed. "What secret?" But before she could answer, the tunnel behind them filled with blue light. Dozens of glowing eyes appeared in the dark, crawling closer, and Cal realized the past was not finished. It was catching up with them fast. The tunnel shook as the harrow closed in, their blue eyes burning in the dark. Cal fired into the shadows, his bullets sparking off metal limbs. But for every machine that fell, two more appeared, their movements faster, their claws sharper. They were learning again, adapting to his fire. Lyra gripped Cal's arm, pulling him down a side passage. Her crimson armor glowed faintly, guiding them through the twisting maze. The sound of claws scraped close behind, echoing like a storm at their backs. "Where are we going?" Cal shouted, his voice raw. Lyra's reply was sharp, urgent. "To the heart of this outpost, where your people never reached. Where something older than both of us waits." They stumbled into a vast underground chamber. The ceiling arched high, covered with carvings that glowed faintly under the flashlight. Circles, spirals, symbols that felt alive, as if they moved when Cal looked too long. In the center stood a massive structure, half buried in stone, shaped like a great wheel of silver and black. It hummed faintly, a sound too deep for the ear but heavy on the chest. Cal lowered his rifle slowly. "What is that?" he asked. Lyra's silver eyes shimmered in the glow. "The last weapon of my people, the relic forged before the fall. Hidden where no enemy could touch it." Cal's jaw tightened. "You're saying this thing can stop them?" Her gaze did not leave the great wheel. "It can break their swarm, cut the thread that binds their mind, but it was never finished, never tested, and to awaken, it requires two." Cal frowned. "Two?" She nodded, her hand pressing against the crimson armor. "One of my kind and one of yours, bound by blood and choice, not by command." The clicking returned, closer, louder, spilling into the chamber. Dozens of blue eyes glowed at the edges of the room, watching, waiting. Cal raised his rifle, firing bursts to keep them back. "Then why haven't you used it?" he demanded. Lyra's face tightened with grief. Because there has been no human before you who survived long enough to stand here. Kale's stomach twisted. How many came before me? Her whisper was barely audible. Hundreds, maybe more, all brave, all fallen. The harrow never allowed them to reach the relic. Until you. The machines stepped closer, their claws scraping stone, their bodies moving as one. Kale felt sweat run down his neck. He turned back to Lyra, his voice harsh. What happens if we fail to activate it? Her eyes glowed silver in the dark. Then your world joins mine, and all that follows will be silence. Kale cursed under his breath, firing another volley. The machines shrieked, their voices cold and broken, repeating his words back at him. All that follows will be silence. They echoed, their tones mocking. The sound clawed at his mind, but he refused to falter. Lyra stepped closer to the relic, her armor pulsing brighter now. She placed her hand on the wheel, and lines of light spread across it, like veins awakening. The ground shook, dust falling from the ceiling. Her voice rang out, steady and strong. Commander, place your hand here. The relic needs both of us. Kale hesitated, his eyes flicking to the swarm pressing forward. He had trusted allies before, and many had betrayed him. Now he was asked to trust someone not even human. In the heart of a war he barely understood. But when he looked at her, wounded and unbroken, standing tall against the swarm, something in him shifted. He stepped forward. Pressing his hand to the wheel beside hers, the relic roared to life. A deep hum rolled through the chamber, the symbols glowing brighter, the silver wheels spinning with blinding light. The harrow froze, their blue eyes flickering, their bodies trembling. For the first time, Kale saw hesitation in the machines. They stepped back, clicking wildly, as if afraid. Kale's heart pounded. It's working, he shouted. But Lyra's face darkened. No, not yet. The relic is awake, but it is not complete. It needs more. It needs a bond deeper than survival. Kale stared at her. What do you mean? Her voice broke, but her eyes stayed steady. It needs sacrifice, Commander. One of us must give more than blood. We must give trust, even if it kills us both. The swarm surged again, screaming in static. Kale pulled his hand free. Firing into the horde, he shouted over the gunfire. Then we buy time, we figure this out together. Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes glowing with something that almost felt like hope. She whispered, humans, always refusing the end. Even when it stands in front of them, the machines closed in. The relic pulsed like a beating heart, and Kale realized this was no longer just a fight for survival. It was a choice between trust and extinction, between fear and sacrifice, and the storm had only just begun. The sacrifice. The chamber shook like a heartbeat as the relic roared louder. Light spread across the walls, carving ancient patterns into the stone. The swarm of harrow froze for a breath, their blue eyes flickering like dying stars. Then, as if commanded by one mind, they rushed forward, claws scraping, voices shrieking in stolen human tones. Kale fired until his rifle burned hot, each bullet sparking off metal limbs, but the harrow adapted, shifting their bodies, bending like liquid steel. Every shot taught them more, every second made them stronger. He cursed under his breath, sweat running down his face. They're not stopping, Lyra, he shouted. Lyra's crimson armor pulsed brighter, her voice cutting through the chaos. They cannot be stopped. Commander, not by bullets, not by fire, only by the relic. She pressed her hand deeper against the wheel, light spreading into her veins like molten fire. Her body trembled, but she did not let go. Kale saw her face tighten in pain, her silver eyes glowing brighter than ever. What's happening? He asked. Her voice was strained. It takes life to awaken. The relic feeds on will, on sacrifice. Kale's stomach twisted. You're saying it will kill you? She gave a broken smile. Perhaps, but if humanity is to live, my blood is a small price. Kale shook his head, firing into the horde again. Not an option, he growled. No more sacrifice, no more blood. Not like this. The harrow shrieked louder, echoing his words back at him. Not like this, they cried. their mocking voices filling the chamber. One of the larger machines leapt forward. Its claws slicing through the air, Cale tackled it, firing point-blank into its chest until sparks blinded him. The machine collapsed, but two more took its place, crawling like spiders across the walls. Cale's arms ached, his lungs burned, but he stood his ground behind him. The relic spun faster, its light burning like a rising sun. Lyra's voice shook, heavy with pain. It needs more. Commander, your blood, your will, your trust. Cale froze, staring at her. You mean it needs both of us? She nodded, her lips trembling. Yes. One alone cannot hold it. One alone breaks, but together it may work. Cale dropped his empty rifle, the sound echoing like thunder. He stepped to her side, pressing his hand against the relic again. The instant he touched it, fire surged through his veins, a force greater than any weapon. He gritted his teeth, refusing to let go. Lyra gasped, her eyes meeting his. Why? She whispered. Because if we're going to die, Cale said, his voice like steel, we're going to do it together. The relic screamed with light, shaking the chamber. The swarm staggered, their blue eyes flashing wildly. For the first time the herald looked uncertain, their perfect rhythm breaking. Cale felt the relic pulling at him, draining his strength. His memories, visions flickered before his eyes, his past battles, the faces of his soldiers, the endless graves of war. But through the storm of memory, Lyra's voice held him steady. Hold on, Commander, do not break, let it take the pain. Not you. Cale's knees buckled, blood dripping from his nose. The harrow screamed in static, their voices bending into a chorus. Human, human. They chanted, their tone both furious and fearful. Cale roared back, his voice echoing with the relic's power. I am human, and I will not bow. The relic blazed, sending a wave of light across the chamber. Machines shattered, their bodies torn apart as if ripped by invisible hands. Blue eyes went dark one by one, sparks raining like dying stars. The swarm shrieked, their voices breaking. Not enough, they cried. And Cale realized the relic was not finished. The wheel spun faster, hungrier, its light burning into Lyra. She cried out, her body shaking, blood dripping from the cracks in her armor. Cale reached for her, holding her arm. Stay with me, he said. Her silver eyes turned to him, filled with both pain and peace. Commander, the relic needs more than strength. It needs surrender. Cale's heart pounded. You mean one of us has to give everything? She nodded weakly. Yes, one must become the key. One must vanish so the other may remain. The harrow regrouped at the chamber's edge. Fewer now, but still many. Their bodies twisted, repairing themselves, learning even as they died. Cale looked at the endless swarm, then at Lyra, bleeding, fading, and he knew the choice would come soon. Her whisper cut through the roar of the relic. If it must be me, do not stop me. Let my death buy your tomorrow. Cale's chest tightened. Fury and sorrow burning together. He had lost soldiers before. He had buried comrades, but this was different. This was not just loss. It was sacrifice written into fate. And Cale swore to himself, if one life had to be given, it would not be hers. The relic's light blazed higher, the chamber trembling on the edge of collapse. The harrow surged forward for one final attack, their claws raised, their voices screaming. And Cale tightened his grip on Lyra's hand, ready to make the choice that would decide not only their lives, but the future of every world the harrow had yet to reach. Asterisk the whisper and the dawn. The relic's light filled the chamber like a second sun. Its glow burned through stone, through steel, through every shadow where the harrow had crawled. The swarm screamed in static voices, their blue eyes flaring and then shattering into sparks. One by one they fell, their bodies collapsing into piles of broken metal. The ground shook as if the world itself was being torn apart. Cale held his hand against the relic, his veins burning with fire. His body shook. His chest felt hollow, as if the relic was pulling pieces of his soul away. Beside him, Lyra trembled, her crimson armor cracked and bleeding light. Her face was pale, her silver eyes dim but still unbroken. "Hold on," Kale growled. His teeth clenched. "We finish this together." The relic screamed louder, demanding more. It wanted one life fully given, one soul to vanish into its core. Kale felt it reaching, trying to decide between him and Lyra. The weight pressed harder, forcing a choice neither of them could escape. Lyra's hand slipped from the relic, her strength fading. She looked at Kale, her voice trembling but steady. "It must be me, Commander. My life is already spent." "Yours is not." Kale shook his head, gripping her wrist, forcing her hand back onto the wheel. "Don't you dare," he snarled. "You've carried this war alone for too long. You don't get to carry its end alone, too." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Humans, always so stubborn," she whispered. "But the relic does not bend to will. It bends to choice, and my choice is clear." Before Kale could stop her, she pressed herself fully against the relic. Her armor blazed, crimson turning to white for the first time in centuries. The chamber shook as her voice rose in a cry that echoed with memory. The screams of her people, the roar of their battles, the whispers of their courage all carried through her. Kale reached for her, but the light was too bright, burning his eyes. "Lyra!" He shouted, his voice breaking, but her silver gaze held his for one last moment. And she whispered, soft as breath. It was white when the battle began. The relic exploded in light. A wave of energy tore through the chamber, racing outward like dawn breaking across the ruins. The Harrow screamed, their bodies turning to ash, their voices twisting into silence. For the first time, Kale saw them falter, not learning, not adapting, but dying. The swarm collapsed. And then there was nothing but silence when the light faded. Kale was on his knees. The relic stood silent, dim once more. Its great wheel cracked and smoking. The chamber was filled with dust and the smell of burned metal. Kale looked beside him, but Lyra was gone. Only her armor remained, no longer red, no longer alive, just empty white plates lying in the dust. His chest tightened, his throat heavy. He reached out, picking up one piece of the armor, holding it in his hand. For the first time since the battle began, he felt the true weight of silence. Not the silence of machines, but the silence of loss. Kale closed his eyes. Breathing deep, she had given everything, not for her people, who were already gone, but for humanity, for him. Above the chamber, the cracked moonlight broke into dawn. The first rays of sun spilled through the ruins, painting the ash and rubble in gold. Kale climbed from the tunnels, his body weak, but his steps steady. The battlefield that once crawled with blue eyes was empty now. Silent but free, he stood alone, the last witness to a sacrifice no human would ever believe. But in his heart, her words burned brighter than the sun. It was white when the battle began. Kale turned toward the horizon. He knew the Harrow were not all gone. The swarm was only one piece of the endless whole. The war was not finished, not yet, but now he carried her story, her sacrifice and her memory, and as long as he lived, humanity would know they were not alone in the fight. The dawn rose higher, the light chasing the shadows away, and Commander Kale walked forward, a soldier burdened with loss but armed with hope. The crimson armor was gone, but the promise remained.